Hello everyone, welcome to our Mindful Self-Compassion Awareness Session for Youth. My name is Hannah and I am the Program Coordinator for Prevent Suicide Today. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about what mindful self-compassion is, how we can be more self-compassionate, and then I'm going to be leading us in some exercises in self-compassion and really exploring how we can be more self-compassionate. So now that we are all physically here, we would like to try to bring our attention into the room as well. And we're going to be doing this by doing a small or a short practice called a soft landing. And this is really just a very brief mindfulness exercise to really help us bring our attention into the present moment. So I invite you to either sit or stand in a comfortable position and let your eyes close either partially or fully. And let's start by simply listening to the sounds in the room. Maybe this is the air conditioning humming, or some traffic in the background. Maybe you can hear noises of people talking. And just let these sounds come to you. If you find yourself getting distracted or your mind wandering, just gently bringing your attention back to the sounds in the room. And if you wish, you may stay with the sounds, or you can bring your attention to your breathing and begin to notice the sensations in your body as you inhale and as you exhale. Perhaps noticing your chest or belly rise and fall as you breathe in and breathe out. And now, if you wish, you may bring your attention to your hands and simply noticing the sensations in your hands. Maybe noticing if there's any tingling, any warmth or coldness, any tightness. Or maybe if there are no sensations at all. And now releasing your attention from either the sounds in the room, your breath, or your hands. And gently opening your eyes when you feel ready. So now, before we really begin digging and exploring what self-compassion is, we really need to start by first understanding compassion. So how would you describe compassion? Or what makes a response compassionate? Or what do you think needs to happen to feel compassion towards someone? Really, compassion means you must notice that somebody or something is suffering. So first you must notice. And some maybe describe this as empathy. And then really secondly, compassion involves being moved by someone's suffering so that you respond to their pain. So compassion involves a response to alleviate or help get rid of suffering. Having compassion also means that we offer understanding and kindness to others. when they fail or make mistakes, rather than judging them harshly. So this next exercise is called How Do I Treat a Friend? So we're going to be looking a little bit about how we treat ourselves versus how we treat our friends when something bad happens. So you can either just reflect on this exercise, or you can go ahead and get something to write on and actually write it down. So I invite you to think of a time when a good friend told you something really bad that had just happened to her. So maybe she failed a test or got in a fight with a friend, or maybe the person she liked asked someone else out. And at any rate, she was just feeling pretty bad and pretty worthless in this moment. And now think of what you said to your friend and how you said it. So think of your tone of voice. Write down or reflect about what you may have said. And now think of a time when you felt pretty bad. Maybe something happened to you that made you feel dumb, or like you didn't belong, or like you just really wanted to crawl into a hole. So maybe you failed a test, or you got in a fight with a good friend, or maybe you played badly during a basketball game. So just reflect on a moment where maybe you felt pretty bad. So what were the words that you said to yourself in this moment? Maybe describe or reflect on the tone of voice that you used. Did you notice any difference in how you treated your friend versus how you treated yourself? Maybe. So when we do this exercise, we're often surprised at how unkind we are to ourselves. But don't worry, almost 78% of people say that they are kinder to others than they are to themselves. And why may that be? Well, it might just be the way that we've been raised, or it's part of our culture. But we can be nice to others and be nice to ourselves. And it really comes down to what self-compassion is. So what is self-compassion? Well, self-compassion is really just compassion turned inward. We must first, notice that we're suffering and then respond to our pain, just like with compassion. Self-compassion means treating ourselves when we're going through a hard time the way we would treat a good friend. So what do you say? Or what tone of voice do you use? Or how is your nonverbal gestures? We know how to be kind because we're usually really kind to our friends and to other people. And all we have to do is turn that kindness towards ourselves. Self-compassion is about learning to take care of ourselves by really figuring out what we need and then giving ourselves exactly what we need. It sounds pretty easy, right? Well, it is. We know how to be kind. We just need to learn and kind of practice how to be more kind to ourselves. So self-compassion has 3 parts to its definition: self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. You can think of it kind of like a 3-legged stool. And each of these parts is an important part of understanding self-compassion. And it's helpful to know about them because all these parts can be used in practices separately and together to help us be kinder to ourselves and not be so judgmental. So another way to describe self-compassion is connected, loving presence. So connected being common humanity, loving being self-kindness, and presence being mindfulness. So when we are in a state of a loving, connected presence, our relationship to ourselves, to others, and to the world really is transformed. So let's begin by looking at the first component of self-compassion, which is self-kindness. So self-kindness is being kind to ourselves and treating ourselves with care and understanding rather than harsh judgment. So this could mean saying kind words to yourself when you're having a hard time or finding yourself being self-critical. So instead of attacking ourselves, with self-kindness, we instead offer ourselves warmth and acceptance. So we actively soothe and we comfort ourselves. Our second component or part of self-compassion is common humanity. And common humanity is the understanding that you're going through something right now that all people go through. So it might not be the same situation, but for instance, all people feel upset, angry, hurt, sad, or frustrated at times. This is really just part of being human. So common humanity is recognizing that all of us are works in progress. It's recognizing that everyone fails and that everyone makes mistakes and experiences hardship from time to time. So when we remember that pain or being hurt is part of the human experience, it really helps us create a moment of connection with others. And it really helps us to not feel isolated. And our third component or part of self-compassion is mindfulness. And I think a common misconception about mindfulness is that it means sitting down and meditating for a really long time. But actually, mindfulness just means paying attention to what you are experiencing in the moment, maybe with a sense of curiosity and without judgment. So mindfulness allows us to be with painful feelings as they are, without suppressing or without running away from those feelings. So why is mindfulness an important part of self-compassion? Well, it's really important because remember, we need to be able to notice when we're suffering. So we need to be able to turn inward and recognize when we're suffering. So then we can respond with care and kindness. And at the same time, mindfulness also prevents us from becoming absorbed by and really over-identifying with negative thoughts and feelings. So with mindfulness, we can recognize that our thoughts and feelings are just that, feelings that will pass. So to be self-compassionate, mindfulness is actually the first step that we need to take because we need the presence of mind to be able to respond in a new way. And now here's an exercise that'll help you actually feel what these parts, self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness are like. So you can either stand up or remain seated and open your hands with your palms facing upwards. And now what does this feel like with your palms upward? Maybe open or maybe relaxing. So this is what mindfulness feels like. It's about feeling whatever is here in this moment and just letting it in without judgment. So now stretch your arms in front of you like a hula hoop, keeping your hands open like a circle. So what does this feel like? Maybe like you're reaching out or you're reaching for another person, like you're about to give or receive a hug. So this is what common humanity feels like. It feels like reaching out and being connected to others, like being included and part of the group. Now bring your hands in and place them over your heart and allow them to just simply rest there, noticing how it feels. Does it feel maybe warm? Maybe safe or protected? So this is a representation of self-kindness, or being kind to ourselves and actively soothing and comforting ourselves. So when we think about self-compassion, we usually only think about the kind or gentle qualities of it. But self-compassion actually has many different features or attributes, and they represent a duality like yin and yang. So one is a softer side, which is comforting and soothing and validating. And this is really the yin side of self-compassion. And the other side is more action-oriented, which is protecting, providing, and motivating. And this is the yang side of self-compassion. So let's first look at the yin side of self-compassion. So yin means being with ourselves in a compassionate way. So by comforting, by soothing, and by validating ourselves. And yin is really considered the tender aspect of self-compassion. So it's being with ourselves in this compassionate way. So maybe this means comforting your emotional body. So maybe listening to music when you're feeling really emotionally overwhelmed. Or soothing your physical body. So for an example, maybe this means taking a hot shower or rubbing your shoulders if they feel really tense. And then validating your struggle. So maybe this just means giving yourself some kind words about what's going on, like, I understand, this is really hard right now. Now, next is the yang of self-compassion. So yang takes action to alleviate suffering, and it does this by protecting, providing, and motivating ourselves. So yang is really considered the fierce aspect of self-compassion. And this really means acting in the world in a compassionate way. So maybe this means protecting yourself from harm. So maybe creating boundaries or saying no if someone's trying to get you to do something that isn't really good for you. So saying no, that's protecting yourself in the yang compassion way. Maybe this means providing for yourself what you really need. So maybe giving yourself a really good meal, or maybe taking the time to exercise and really work your body. Or maybe this means motivating yourself. Maybe motivating yourself to get some activities done or to do something productive. And this is really the yang side of self-compassion. It's really fierce, and we're really acting in the world in a compassionate way. And now we can begin to cultivate self-compassion by asking ourselves this question: what do I need right now? So what do I need right now, or what do I really need in this moment? And then considering which qualities or which features of self-compassion, the yin or the yang, that we may need to draw on to answer this question. So by simply asking yourself this, you're actually giving yourself a moment of self-compassion, even if you don't have an answer or you can't meet your needs at that time. So another way to remember this, or to help you answer this question, is by using the PARC model. So PARC is an acronym. So each letter stands for something. And P is for pause. A is for ask. R is for read. And K is for kindly respond. And now I'd like to invite you to practice parking for this short exercise. So let's just begin by taking a moment to pause and stop what we were doing. So maybe this means putting our phone down for a few seconds, maybe sitting up in a comfortable position, and just taking in a deep breath. And now ask yourself, what do I need right now? Then read your emotions, or maybe read your body or your thoughts. So are you feeling any tension in your body? Maybe in your shoulders or your lower back. Or maybe you are feeling a little tired right now, or maybe hungry. Or maybe you're having some thoughts race in your head and just reading these right now. And now kindly responding to your needs. So maybe this means using the yin side of self-compassion. And maybe taking a moment to soothe your body by stretching, or maybe stepping away for a moment. Or maybe the yin side of self-compassion by validating your thoughts. Or maybe you need the yang side of self-compassion, the fierce. So maybe you need to provide for yourself right now. Maybe you're hungry and you need to grab a snack or get some water. Or maybe in this moment you're not sure what you need, and you can just take a moment to comfort yourself by maybe placing a hand on your heart or another comfortable place on your body, and then just taking a deep breath. And we can let go of our practice now. So I really invite you to start practicing the park model and responding to your needs, and practice responding to your needs. So either being with yourself compassionately or acting in the world compassionately. And another way to remember the park model and how you can answer, what do I need right now? You can remember it by sitting on a park bench, right? Maybe that's the yin side of self-compassion, and just being with yourself. Or you could take a walk in the park. So maybe you need the yang side of self-compassion and being more action-oriented. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the science of self-criticism and the science of self-compassion. And there are scientific differences between self-criticism and self-compassion and how we respond to perceived danger. So both self-criticism and self-compassion trigger brain structures that release chemicals. But self-criticism is different than self-compassion in many ways. So self-criticism really involves what is called the threat defense system. So you may know it more commonly as fight, flight, or freeze. So when we perceive a threat or when we feel threatened, our brain actually begins to release chemicals. And we get ready to fight, to flee, or to freeze. And this system really works well for protecting against physical threats to our bodies. So when we're in physical danger. However, we can also activate this system when we self-criticize. So when we engage in self-criticism, we are actually activating our fight, flight, or freeze response. And this puts us at a stage of constant stress. And we also shorten our window of tolerance. So you can see in this picture on the right, it's the yellow zone. And the window of tolerance is really our ability to cope with difficult things. So we shorten this window of tolerance when we're under constant stress and we're under constant criticism, and this isn't good. However, with self-compassion, we have what is called the mammalian caregiving system. And when this system is activated, natural feel-good hormones are released, which helps us actually reduce stress and increase our feelings of safety and security. So with self-compassion, we help increase our window of tolerance, and this is good. So when we practice self-compassion, we are decreasing our stress, and we are increasing feelings of safety. And one practice we can use when we're feeling hurt and under stress, or when we're engaging in a lot of self-critical talk, is called soothing and supportive touch. So very simply, this just means putting a hand on your heart or some other gesture that is soothing to you. And so this practice actually activates our care system and will help increase our feelings of safety, relaxation, and comfort. So as we're going through these gestures, really take some time to notice how each one feels. And you can get a sense of which one is right for you and which one you can use later when you're under stress to help you relax. So the first one is just simply placing a hand over your heart, kind of like you're doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And let it rest there just for a moment. Maybe you're noticing the warmth of your chest and maybe how it feels. Maybe this one doesn't feel comfortable or soothing to you. So maybe place both hands over your heart, one on top of the other, and let them both rest there and see how that feels. Cradle your face with both hands, allowing your face to rest in your hands, seeing if this gesture feels comfortable to you. Or maybe cross your arms and give yourself a little hug. And you can gently stroke or rub your arms and notice what that feels like. This feels supportive and soothing. Or maybe you can place both of your hands in your lap. And lastly, making a fist with your hand and putting it on your heart. And with your other hand, holding the wrist. And then noticing if this feels supportive or soothing to you. So hopefully you found a gesture that was relaxing to you. And you can really use this practice to help anchor you during difficult times and to help you feel more safe and secure when you're feeling really stressed or overwhelmed, and to kind of help you bring yourself back into the moment more compassionately. So now we're going to talk a little bit about self-esteem and self-compassion, and then we're going to do our last short exercise. So you might have heard a lot about self-esteem. Self-esteem is different than self-compassion. Both involve an attitude we take towards ourselves, but that's pretty much where the similarity ends. Now, self-esteem is how we understand our worth and our value in the world, and it's based a lot on our evaluation of ourselves and our comparison to others. So we really tend to have a high self-esteem when we're doing good. But what happens when we fail at something, or we aren't doing so good, or we don't feel great about ourselves? Well, our self-esteem generally starts to take a dive. So although self-esteem generally is a good thing to have, there are problems with how it works. Now, on the other hand, self-compassion is not an evaluation of our worth, and it's not a comparison. When we practice self-compassion, we don't judge ourselves for failing at something, and we don't judge ourselves for feeling bad. Self-compassion really offers an alternative in how we relate to ourselves. And this is a way that is more dependable, a way that we can relate to ourselves, and it's not based on achievements or whether we are successful in the moment. So with self-compassion, we are not evaluating ourselves, and we are not judging ourselves or comparing ourselves against other people. We are self-compassionate because we feel bad in the moment, and that can always be with us. So this is going to be our last exercise called Compassionate Friend. And it's commonly considered a favorite because you can really use your imagination and connect with the compassionate side of yourself and really create a safe place that you can return to. So I invite you to find a comfortable position, and you can either sit or lie down. And allowing your eyes to close, begin by taking a few deep breaths and just allow your shoulders to relax away from your ears. Now turning your attention toward your breath, just feel your body breathing in and out. Take a few moments to allow yourself to imagine a place where you feel safe, comfortable, and relaxed. This can be a real or imagined place, but a place that allows you to breathe comfortably and let go of any worry. Maybe this is a place in nature, like at the beach or in the woods, or maybe it's in your bedroom, or maybe in a friend's house. So imagine this place in as much detail as you can. So the sounds and the smells and what you really feel like in this place. Now imagine that you'll soon receive a visitor, a warm and a kind friend. And this is someone who accepts you for exactly who you are. And this can be a real person like a friend, a grandparent, a teacher, or maybe a character from a book you've read, or even a pet. And imagine this being in as much detail as possible, especially how it feels to be in their presence. Now you have a choice. You can either go out from your safe place to meet your visitor, or you can invite your visitor in. And imagine you are doing that now. Allow yourself to sit with your visitor at just the right distance, feeling completely comfortable and safe, completely accepted and loved, remembering that your compassionate friend cares deeply about you and wants you to be happy. Take a moment to enjoy how you feel in the presence of your compassionate friend. This visitor is here with you now and can understand exactly what it's like to be you, exactly where you are in your life right now, and exactly what you struggle with. And most of all, this visitor accepts and understands you completely for who you are. Now this friend has something important to say to you, something that is just what you need to hear right now. And see if you can listen closely for the words they want to share. Or perhaps you just hear it in your own mind. Words that are comforting and supportive. And if no words come, that's okay too. Just enjoy being in the presence of your compassionate friend. Enjoy your friend's company for a last few moments, and then bid them farewell, knowing you can invite them back whenever you need to. You are now alone in your safe place again. Let yourself savor what just happened, maybe reflecting on the words you heard. And before this meditation ends, remembering that this compassionate friend is a part of you. The presence you felt and the words you heard are a deep part of yourself. The comfort and safety that you felt is there and within you at all times. Know that you can return to this safe place and to this compassionate friend whenever you need to. Bringing your attention gently back to your breath and gently opening your eyes when you're ready. And we can let go of our practice. So what have we learned? Self-compassion is a way of relating to ourselves that is always there for us, not just when things are going well. We can remember self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness are all parts of self-compassion. And we can practice parking to help us know what quality of self-compassion we need. Giving ourselves a soothing and supportive touch is another practice we can do when we're feeling really stressed or overwhelmed. And these are all the exercises that we tried today. And find one that really speaks to you, something that you really enjoyed and you really find helpful, and how you can practice self-compassion. And lastly, here are some additional resources about self-compassion for teens. Or you can email me if you have any questions about self-compassion for teens. So thank you, and remember to be self-compassionate.